Greetings, family. So today is all about the rain. And it's not currently raining outside, so I'm not talking about the rain on the outside. I'm talking about the rain on the inside, so to speak. The rain that I encountered in the midst of my self-care practice this morning, because that's what the lesson was around. So we're going to talk about this today, and this is really fun because I've never heard of this concept. Excuse me. And it's my first time hearing of the concept, and I think that is a pretty cool concept. So drop a line. If you're listening to this live, drop a line to let me know if you can hear me clearly. And happy Monday to you, by the way. R.A.I.N, 10% happier self-care journey. Today is January 13th, 2020. R.A.I.N is a handy acronym and way to explore any sensation, thought, or emotion. And here comes my cat. Let me show you. Come here. I want to show you to the people. She didn't want to let me show her to the people. I was trying to show you. Okay. All right. Okay. All right. Bad idea. She needs self-care. So, R.A.I.N is a handy way to explore any sensation, thought, or emotion. It's an acronym. And so the acronym is recognize, accept, investigate, and non-identification. This practice boosts your emotional literacy. You become curious of an emotional reaction as opposed to being lost inside the emotion, reaction, or the experience. You'll notice fewer negative emotions in general as well because of the regular practice of observing emotional habits. Hey Claire, happy Monday. Thanks for hanging out. How are you? Drop a line and let me know how your weekend was or how your day's going so far. So once again, recognize, accept, investigate, non-identification. And on this first point, I will say this practice really has boosted my emotional literacy. And as they were talking about, it makes you more curious of a reaction as opposed to being lost inside of it. The funny thing is I realized this is natural to my personality because I've always really responded to things in this way. I'm always curious. You know, one thing that my best friend and bass player for Fruition, Blue, one day I remember him telling me that one of my best character traits was that I was a very non-judgmental person. I mean, we all have our judgments, we all can be judgy, right? But what he was referring to is when someone presents something new to me or different in life. At that time, him and I were having great conversations about astrology and that kind of thing. And this was during the time when I didn't have any clue to, anything in that regard. I would always look at it as a very interesting thing. And even though at that time I was a Christian and a lot of stuff he was talking about, we were taught to be against or to be afraid of. And the funny thing is we were even having these conversations in that environment because we used to play together at a church, and during the sermon time when we would take a break, we would come downstairs in the church and actually have some of these conversations. But I was never judgmental about what he was saying, and I was always open. Even if I couldn't attest to it, I would always say, that's really interesting, it's fascinating. And that is and has been and still is a quality of my life that allows me to be so open to many things and to really learn a lot. But in being even more intentional about it, this kind of practice really does make you more curious about your emotions as opposed to being lost inside of it. And that's so important. one thing I want to talk about with meditation is that sometimes meditation can open Pandora's box, exposing various subconscious feelings, emotions, and habits that you were previously not aware of. In the beginning of this lesson that I did today, they had a video. In the video, they were having lunch. This is Dan Harris and Jeff Warren, the guy who's the author of this particular course. They were having a meeting with an intervention team and just talking to them about, their various things that they go through in life and everything. And one person mentioned this topic. He said, since I've started this meditation thing, it's really opening up Pandora's box, so to speak, like where all kinds of things are coming to me that I didn't realize I was dealing with or feeling. And sometimes that can be daunting. And what I realized, and I guess my point of advice, hey Russell, thanks for hanging out. Hey Jermaine, hey Carrie, thanks for hanging out. What I've noticed in my experience is that even though it does bring to light subconscious things that you might not realize you were dealing with or doing, certain habits you had that you might not even be happy about, or you realize they're unhealthy, it can, in some cases, it can make you not want to look at it. But in most cases, I realize this whole process, once you're open to it, it allows you to actually want to explore it deeper, because you really realize that you're dealing with something and you want to really investigate it, and you're learning and practicing mindfulness. So it can be an opening of a Pandora's box. Recognize without judgment the emotions you're currently experiencing in the moment. The important part and the most significant part that I've learned about mindfulness since visiting this topic, like revisiting, I guess you could say, is I wasn't aware that mindfulness, I wasn't aware of the part of the definition that has to do with the lack of judgment. That has been the most significant thing to me, and I think the most profound aspect of mindfulness. So recognize without judgment the emotions you are experiencing in the moment. Okay, so now this is getting into actually the R.A.I.N and what this acronym is. For my acronym heads out there, that actually is the first one. So you have R.A.I.N. So R is recognize. You're recognizing the emotions. A is for accept. Accept whatever the emotional sensation. Let me read that again because I put the emphasis in the wrong place. Accept whatever the emotional sensation, allow it to be. Open up to it and even care for it. Instead of suppressing it, simply allow yourself to feel and be with it. In this, you are integrating your emotions with your cognition, marrying what we feel with what we know. This, I pretty much almost verbatim took this quote for quote from the course. Hey Cal, thanks for hanging out. This was so powerful because this is something that I've talked about, I've felt for years, I've dwelled on, I live my life on. Accept, right? So many of you are watching this, you know that my motto is, or my religion is acceptance over expectation. My religion is acceptance over expectation. And I realized a long time ago that acceptance was really the most important practice for humanity, in my opinion. And I realized that many of our thought systems weren't putting enough emphasis on acceptance and putting way more emphasis on expectation because of the fact that, A, there are many times and in many scenarios where you do have good reason to expect the better, expect the great, expect, these good things in life. And also, positivity and optimism in this form of expecting allows you to unlock some things. It allows you to be open to some things, put yourself in certain places where you wouldn't before, giving you more opportunities, taking risks that you wouldn't have taken before, giving you more opportunities or opening you to more things. So expectation is something that's very healthy. The thing I realize in most of our thought systems is that we don't realize expectation sometimes, thanks Cal, sometimes in our thought processes, our various philosophies, our various religious and spiritual philosophies, and just overall, different thought perspective, different ways of thinking, modalities of thinking. Sometimes we don't realize that expectation is actually unrealistic when you're dealing with the inevitables of life. And acceptance, what you realize is that acceptance is the one that you can apply to everything in life and be at peace and be happy. Expectation is the thing that you're only able to apply to, or the things that if you apply to everything in life, you will be at times very happy with the outcome, and then there'll be other times when you are completely disappointed, completely let down, completely confused, and it's because you've applied the positive notion of expectation onto something where it was really about applying acceptance. So that's where I am. In my opinion, acceptance is the most important practice for humanity. It's also known by synonyms such as equanimity, forgiveness, maturity, love, being present, etc. And even as I say those words, this is hence why a lot of our philosophies and traditions and spiritual paths and that kind of thing are based around these, because these are healthy things. These are very healthy things. So accept whatever the emotional sensation, allow it to be. Open up to it and even care for it. Instead of suppressing it, simply allow yourself to feel and be with it. And the last course, I was telling you all, the last session, a couple handy statements that come to mind that I like to keep in my pocket. Whatever you resist persists, and whatever you fight, you ignite. So the point is not to fight it or try to resist or suppress it, is to be able to allow yourself to feel it and be with it. And in this, you are integrating your emotions with your cognition, marrying what we feel with what we know. So to be able to just examine your feelings and look at what you feel versus what you know, which might be completely different than what you feel. I call this the wedge, and we're going to talk about this in a few. I thought about this years ago. So, the R is recognize, the A is accept, the I is investigating or investigation. Investigating is expanding and deepening the volume of what we're accepting by getting interested in what we're feeling and working at a pace that is acceptable for us. So you're expanding and deepening the volume of your emotional literacy, your resiliency, your tolerance, your capacity. You're expanding that naturally by approaching your emotions and the sensations and thoughts that you're having with investigation instead of judgment from yourself or even judgment from others. Even if someone is coming down on you in a really hard way about something, and you do need to look at that, you should never look at it with the intensity at which they might have come at you if it's a high level of intensity, because it'll affect how you work with yourself with it. It may induce a really deep and heavy form of self-judgment. And you gotta be careful of that, because self-judgment is the very thing that gets in the way of working things out. It's the very pitfall of trying to really heal or work on things that you want to change. So investigating is expanding and deepening the volume of what you're accepting by getting interested in what you're feeling and working at a pace that is acceptable for you. And that's I gotta hang there just for 10 seconds, because that's the thing. Your whole deal is that you're working with yourself. It has to be at a pace that works for you. Because if not, again, if you try to rush this thing, I had to tell a friend the other day who was very adamant about wanting to heal from something. And her words were I need to heal from this right away. I need to heal from this ASAP. And I mentioned to her, she was able to really receive it and understand. I mentioned to her, like, that actually is the thing that's going to get you in trouble, and to actually make it be where you don't heal. Sorry, y'all, my cat is now showing me overwhelming attention now. So now you want to be rubbed, and she just doesn't want to be shown on camera, I think. No, I'm just kidding. So, she really received it, and I told her that this idea of, like, I want to be over this now, even though I could relate to it, because everybody wants to be healed right away. Nobody wants to sit there and, their wounds just be open and hurting. I was like, that's the very thing, though, that's going to induce and add to your lack of healing or your stress or what have you. That's what it is. So you have to be gentle with yourself. You have to allow yourself the time, the space. Yes, you really do. She just yawned in key. She just meowed in key, by the way. Meow. What's up, Kurt? My brother in the house. How you doing, bro? Happy 2020 to you and the family. So you have to work at a pace that's acceptable for you. So we have recognize, accept. The I is investigate. Right? Oh, here's another little tip. Be objective. You want to be objective with yourself, right? You want to be objective but friendly with yourself while investigating. Be objective but friendly with yourself while investigating. You got to have that balance. When we open this way to a feeling of mindfulness, I'm sorry, I'm having an emphasis problem today. It's because I wrote my notes and I didn't read over them before I went live, right? So I'm having a funny little emphasis thing. So I'm supposed to read that like this, or I'm supposed to state it this way. When we open this way to a feeling, mindfulness takes over. If you do this enough times, you will create a new, healthier habit. So mindfulness automatically takes over when you open up this way. In fact, the way I should have worded is like, when you open up this way, this actually is the first step of mindfulness. Like, this is mindfulness. This is literally what it means to be mindful. You're opening up to something, you're being friendly and non-judgmental. So if you do this enough times, you'll create a new healthy habit. Now, this is probably going to be the most fun part for me right here of this session. The way to change a habit is by working to create a new habit. Not, I repeat, not by trying to abruptly stop a habit. There's a subtle, nuanced difference to this approach, but the effects are monumental. And that's all coming from my mouth. When I wrote this, I kind of came up with this quote or this pondering. The way to change a habit is by working to create a new habit. I was looking at this video recently on neural pathways, and it was with a psychologist that was just talking about, how to change your patterns, your habits, and your behavior. And he really hit on this. And it's something that it just, as simple as it is, it took me all the way back to the beginning of this whole thing, which is like, it's so simple. When you have a habit, the tendency is to try to do something to forcefully stop it. But what he said was, and it's just a change of perspective, you stop a habit by creating a new habit. And so that's why all of this gentleness and this mindfulness and all this fluffy stuff is so damn important, because what you're really doing is you are rewiring your brain. You're reworking the way that you deal with your emotions. And there's so many other philosophies out here. There's spiritual paths, there's religion, there's music, there's like people's traditions and their deep-seated convictions and what they proclaim and everything. Like, there's all these things that we have to influence us, that's trying to show us how to deal with our emotions. That's not healthy. There's a lot of thought processes about how to deal with your emotions that's not healthy. There are thought processes that's telling us not to trust our emotions and to trust in the emotions or the mind of another being with that. There's all kind of degradation to our emotions or ways of teaching us that I notice over my years of really studying psychology in our various forms of, our social psychologies. I realized there were a lot of things that weren't helpful. So the only way to change a habit is by gently working on a new habit. And it's a subtle, nuanced difference, but it has monumental effects. So the N in R.A.I.N, and again, we are here at recognize, accept, investigate, and then the N stands for non-identification. I thought this was interesting. Non-identification is the attitude of not taking your emotions personally. Say, blank is happening, similar to saying a thunderstorm is happening. So you might say, like they were mentioning in this course, frustration is happening to me right now, or anger is happening to me right now, or, fear or nervousness or anxiety is happening to me right now. Making this room, or as I like to call a wedge, allows for you to observe the emotions, sensation, or thoughts without becoming the emotion, sensation, or thought. And that's, it's straight into the point. Those that are familiar with this, that this is the core of everything we're talking about, is that a lot of times what allows us to, be moved to a particular impulse of action or deal with anxiety or depression or stress and those kind of things is because whatever we're feeling, we become that, as opposed to recognizing this is something that's happening to us and having another part of our brain that's like, you are totally fine. This is not life-threatening. It's just a feeling. It's okay to feel this way. This will pass. It'll be better shortly, or this person didn't mean this, or think about the intentions of this person. They didn't mean this negatively when they said that. I'm just naming all kinds of scenarios. This is being in the experience versus being able to have the room to step back, see yourself, or see the experience happening to you, and being able to remedy it from that perspective. So the N is non-identification, stopping yourself from identifying as the emotion, as the experience, and identifying yourself as someone who is going through this experience or this is happening. This curiosity just allows you to trace things back, and you start realizing maybe there's nothing to stress about, or maybe there is, but there's no reason to stress to this degree. It's so helpful. It's so helpful. So last but not least, periodically come back to your home base, which is the breath in this case, and we're actually going to end on that, or being with the body, etc., during this mindfulness process. And practice settling in, detaching, having self-compassion, and overall relaxing. This whole thing is a practice, which means that your goal is progress, not perfection. Because if you know by following me, I believe that perfection is totally a myth. It's a mental math concept that we've come up with. So progress is the thing that's most important to focus on. So what I want to end with is really where I meant to start, but I just forgot in getting into the flow. Hey, Mike, thanks for watching. I hope you all enjoyed this session today. And so where I want to end is really where I meant to start, which is the 30-second meditation. And this is a concept that I don't know if I haven't done the research to see if anybody out there, already has this name or this concept, but this is the 30-second meditation concept that I've come up with. And all it is 3 deep breaths followed by 10 seconds of mindfulness. 10 seconds of the ability to apply everything that we talked about today, to recognize, to observe, to accept, to, not identify with, to extend, we didn't talk about today, but to extend self-compassion to yourself or to the experience or to the scenario or to the other people that's in the situation, like whatever, And I feel like 30 seconds of that allows for this to be accessible to every human being on earth, so that it eliminates any kind of reasons for not feeling like you could participate in a meditative experience or that you have time to meditate. For years, it's really funny because now I, explore seated meditation, and laying meditation and eyes closed and that kind of thing. And the right R.A.I.N Hill music, like this song Yellows of Spring playing in the background that you're hearing there, available at aaronhilltv.com. I had my meditation practice was really what we're about to do now. It was like I never sat down to meditate. Never sat down. It was like a constant state of being that I was in and have been all the time, and it's still that today. Now I'm just adding to that with other forms of that meditation. But I would always apply mindfulness in the moment to anything I was experiencing. I would always apply self-compassion to myself and to others that's in the situation. I would always put the wedge there and not identify myself with the feeling and just say, like, this is something that's happening. Let me be curious of it. Let me be gentle. Like, I wasn't taking as many deep breaths as I'm taking now. But in a way, I was breathing, so to speak, by allowing for the space, of my feelings, the feelings of others around me. And it kept me at a place of peace for years. And I always felt like that. I was always like, I understand people who meditate, seated in lotus position and all this kind of thing. I get that. But I was like, I feel the things that they're describing, like all the things I'm talking about now, I was like, the things that they're describing, these are all things that I experience in my regular, not only day to day, but moment to moment. Like, that's the mindset that I'm in, and so, yeah, I never, even people that would try to make me feel guilty by not, because my practice wasn't that kind of practice, or make it seem like I had something negative to say about that practice or what have you. It's always just been something for me where I realized that, like, I have total appreciation for it, and now I do in a whole new way because I'm adding to the layers. But these are all things, these are all mindsets where I've literally been and applying. So it just makes me feel good that I could relate to this and that I'm discovering it in new expressions, in new ways. So let's just take a few seconds, wherever you are. It doesn't matter where you are. You could do this if you're driving. You could do this if you're, laying in the bed. It doesn't matter. Let's just take 30 seconds to take 3 deep breaths in and out and just have 10 seconds of mindfulness or detachment or being able to just be with our experience in the moment. So we're going to breathe in through our nose and out through our mouth. And you want to make it long inhales and matching exhales. So let's take a deep breath in and out. Deep breath in and out. One final deep breath in and one long exhale out. Let's just take 10 seconds just to be with our experience and our emotions in a non-judgmental way, just right where we are. that's it. So I always say, if you've never done that before, or you don't take that time out regularly to do that, congratulations, you just meditated. And on a very serious tip, like, that's a practice that I realize you can practice at any given moment throughout your day. You can just come from the office where the boss got on your last damn nerves, and while you're driving or before you drive, you can do it either way. You could literally just take 30 seconds to take 3 deep breaths and to, for a second, just release your judgment, about what you're experiencing or about what this person did to you. That, like, release your judgment, just be with your feelings, honor them. And then I feel like, as an optimist, making that room allows you just enough space to then, when you revisit it again, even if it's right afterwards, you start from a different place on the spectrum. Like, you apply more understanding, you have more empathy for the person that lashed out at you, because you realize, like, they got their own shit they're going through. You're less judgmental about just how you feel. Like, it's mindfulness 101. So on that tip, make it rain. Make it rain. Recognize, accept, investigate, and non-identification. Don't identify. That's about it. I hope you have a mindful rest of the day. A few final things. Again, the music you were hearing in the background, that's called Yellows of Spring, and it's on my newest piano meditation project called Key Reflections. You can listen to that anywhere where you have your current streaming service. I imagine you have Spotify, or Apple Music, or something like that. Please download that project. It's called Key Reflections by R.A.I.N Hill. And yeah, I'd like to see what you think about that, especially with what I'm presenting here, and if it gives you the musical version of that mindfulness. I've created a new phrase that I'm now working on coining, which is called neuromusical mindfulness. And this meditation music that I'm making is like, it's the crux of it, and you're gonna start to hear some other elements too, some vocal stuff, some quotes, even some lyrics, some bars, So yeah, check that out if you get a chance. And then last but not least, if you would like to help to support me to continue to create content like this and the other content that you all see me make, then look for that info in the comment section. I'm going to paste it below. And I actually forgot to paste, I'm doing it right now, I forgot to paste the notes for the day that I was just going through. So I just did that. So revisit that so you can have those for yourself. And last but not least, as always, peace, be mindful, and be well. Take care.